morning. First and foremost, I want to thank all the veterans for their sacrifice and services for our freedoms. We would not be enjoying the freedoms we have today without them. My name is Sonnichsen. I was asked to come here to speak today by a member of the American Legion Post 130. My first thought was, oh, what an honor. And then asked what it was he wanted me to speak about that I didn't know for Veterans Day. He said, you're like being married to a veteran. I thought, the other side of the story. The sacrifices we, the family, make for our veterans. I thought, First thing I want to know and ask is how many of the spouses of the veterans were married to their veteran during their service? How many of you were married to your veteran after their service? There is a difference. Rod served in the Army as a tank mechanic. The Army moved us to many places. During that time, we had two daughters, Sheila and Heather. Yes, they were military brats. They won't say they are, but they were. Rod and I were high school sweethearts. We came from a small town of Bloomfield in northeastern Nebraska of about 1,200 people. We were both raised on a family farm. He joined the Army in the delayed entry program in April of 1980. He was 17 at the time, so he had to wait until he was 18, which was a month later. When he left for basic NAIT, which is advanced individual training, we were engaged to be married. We decided to wait until he got done and got to his first duty station before we got married. Our honeymoon was to Fort Carson, Colorado. We couldn't live on post because he didn't have enough rank. He was just a little private. So that was the beginning of our married life 34 years ago. First thing we did when we get there is I get my dependent identification card. First thing I learned after getting that was you don't leave home without it. You cannot come on to post or expect to go to the commissary, which is the grocery store, or the PX, or Post Exchange, which is like the Apple store, without that card. I also had to memorize Rod's Social Security number. If you called to make an appointment at the doctor's office or anywhere, first thing they ask you was his Social Security number. We were stationed there for 2.5 years. While there, our oldest daughter, Sheila, was born. There is the same in the military. If they would have wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. I learned early on that if you wanted or needed your spouse, you would have to wait or do it yourself. Military first, family second. A good example was I was sick with the flu with a 3-month-old baby. Rod couldn't stay home with me to help take care of either one of us, so I did what I could and managed. While in Fort Carson, Rod frequently went to the field. This is where they would be gone 2 or 3 weeks at a time to do training exercises. Back then, there wasn't cell phones, so he left that morning to go to the field. I would not see or hear from him until he got back. We then got transferred to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and got to live on post because he was a sergeant. We lived there for 1 year, and this was where our youngest daughter, Heather, was born. Here is where I really learned how to rely on my family, on my military friends and neighbors. I was pregnant and in labor with Heather. Our next door neighbor had offered to take care of our oldest daughter when the time came to have a baby. I was supposed to have had her a week and a half earlier. Didn't happen. When the day came, our neighbors had taken leave for Christmas and left the day before. I didn't have a backup for Sheila. Luckily, I knew my neighbor's good friend and called her to see if she could watch her until Rod could pick her up after the baby was born. She said she could, so we brought Sheila there and went straight to the hospital. A little later, she called and said that she had to leave and if we could get someone else to watch her. So Rod called a coworker and he said his wife could come and pick her up and then he would watch her until either he got home or Rod came to pick her up, whichever came first. I finally delivered Heather late that evening. After a long day, Rod needed to pick up Sheila. We didn't have any idea where the coworker lived or have a home phone number to call. By pure luck, his coworker called us at the hospital and Rod was able to go pick Sheila up. Rod then got orders to go to Germany for 3 years. He also re-enlisted for 4 more years before we moved there. I was nervous to move to Germany. Rod left earlier to go there. As soon as we got orders, then we were to go there. Fortunately, it was only a month wait. When I went to Germany, I had never flown before. The girls, 3 and 8 months old, and I got on a plane in Omaha and flew to St. Louis, Missouri. On the plane, there were 3 businessmen that sat close to us. They played with the girls and asked where we were going. I explained our situation, and they said, not a problem. They would make sure we got our luggage and would help us get to our next flight. This was to be a military flight, and when we got there, there was a line a mile long to get checked in. One of the gentlemen saw the line and said, wait a minute, I'll be right back. He went over and talked to a gentleman who was dressed in his Class A uniform, and he waved the soldier. This soldier let me in front of him, and once on the plane, he ended up sitting with us. He helped me entertain the girls for 9 hours. I was so thankful to have met him. In Germany, Rod spent more time in the field, about 3 weeks to a month, every 3 to 4 months. While there, I made several friends in my apartment building and with several members of Rod's troops' wives. While the guys were gone, if we needed a sitter to be able to go to the grocery store, go shopping, or run several errands, we would take turns watching each other's kids. When they were gone in the field, we would get together for a potluck at someone's apartment and just visit what our kids liked. We didn't have any family there except each other. We became very close. I still talk to several of them today by phone and by Facebook. One incident while we were stationed in Germany was in 1986 when the U.S. bombed Libya. I had not heard it had happened. It wasn't on the TV, which over there we had one station. It was the American Forces Network. My dad called from the States and asked how I was doing. He asked if Rod was on alert now because of what had happened in Libya. I had no idea what he was talking about, but he commenced informing me of what was going on. After talking to him, I called Rod's motorboat. No answer. Shortly thereafter, an MP, which is the military police, showed up at my door and told us to get our survival kit together. This survival kit consisted of enough water, 1 gallon each, food and clothing for 3 days for each person, and their passports. And then told us to be ready. They would come back for us when the time came. We were not allowed to leave our apartments unless it was absolutely necessary. Very scary. I didn't hear from Rod for 3 days. When I did, he told me to pack all of his military uniforms and gear into his duffel bags and bring them to the base. So I got all this together and I carried it to base. About 7 blocks with 2 little girls. So I have 2 big duffel bags on my back, plus holding hands with 2 little girls. We met at the front gate. We gave him his bags. We each got a hug and a kiss, and he says, "I'll see you when I see you." 2 days later, they released him to come home. Thank God. Since we didn't have family in Germany during the holidays, and neither did anyone else, we would invite the single soldiers from his platoon and any families that wanted to come to dinner. This was our family, our military family. We were closer to them than our regular family. This was very common in the military communities. Just like the soldiers relying on each other to watch their backsides, the spouses and children relied on each other for support, friendship, and anything else anyone needed. They did have schools for the kids, for the American students. Sheila went to kindergarten and 1st grade in Germany. When we came back to the States and she went to school, she had a hard time telling what time it was. In Germany, they went by a military time. For example, 5 o'clock was 0500, 7 o'clock p.m. was, or 5 o'clock p.m. was 1700. So it was a little bit of an adjustment for her to look at a regular clock and know what time it was. One of the things I noticed as Rod moved up in rank is he became more focused on the job at hand. He would study more on the days that he was home. He was more intense on learning the strategies and weapons and tactics that would keep his troops alive. This was more obvious when we were stationed in Germany. The DMZ was located on the border, the Russian border, just a couple of hours from where we were stationed. One side had the Russian troops' tanks, and the other side had the U.S. troops' tanks facing each other, ready for fire. I accept that it was this way during the entire Cold War. I accepted his focus, that it was his way of reassurance that he would return home alive. I would remind him every now and then that no matter how many stripes he got on his collar, he would not outrank me. He understood and still does. Our next tour of duty was in Puerto Rico, California. This was the hardest tour we had endured during Rod's military career. At this time in 1987 and 88, it was a desert training post, which meant he was part of the opposing forces to train the battalions on survival training in the desert. He was in the desert for 25 days, home for 4 days, back out for 25 days, and so on. This is how our year in Fort Irwin went. As I reflect back on this time, I can see how this was similar to having him gone for a year in Iraq or Afghanistan, except one huge main difference. He wasn't being shot at by light rounds or driving over an IED. With Rod gone 25 days of the month, it was up to me to take total care of the girls, make sure the bills were paid, make any major decisions that would come up that couldn't wait until he was back home. And then remember to tell him what had came up while he was gone, so he was aware of what was going on. Some decisions probably weren't the best I could have made, but I did the best that I could. Back then we didn't have cell phones or computers, so we couldn't talk, text, or Skype each other. We didn't even send a letter because it wouldn't get to him out there. When he would come back to the post, the girls and I would drive 40 miles, because we lived in Barstow, to the post and pick him up and come home. The girls were in 2nd grade in preschool, and I had a job to go to. So we didn't have the chance to spend the unlimited time with him when he was home each month. We had to keep some sort of routine for the girls' sake and mine. By living in Barstow, we did not have the military family closeness like we had in Germany. I missed their support and their friendship. In Barstow, it was really lonesome and depressing. When Rod would come home, I would put on the best act for that everything was fine, so that he could leave in a couple of days and concentrate on being safe in the desert and doing his job. At the end of Fort Irwin, it was time for Rod to re-enlist. He found out his next tour duty would be in Korea, would be 24 months in Korea, unaccompanied, which meant he would go by himself. After spending a year apart of seeing us, he chose not to re-enlist. As we entered the civilian life, it was scarier than it was entering the military life. In the military, we were guaranteed a paycheck every 2 years and health insurance. As a civilian, your boss could fire you at any time, or you could be laid off with no notice. And not every job had health insurance. After being out of the military for a few years, like 7 years, we missed being around our military family. We missed the closeness we had and being able to talk about things we did, lived, and the understanding. We found the American Legion family, the world's largest veterans organization. The American Legion is made up of soldiers, male and female. The American Legion auxiliary is made up of wives, mothers, daughters, granddaughters, and grandmothers of these soldiers. The sons of the American Legion are the sons and grandsons of these soldiers. The American Legion Riders are the combination of all these family members. Being a part of this large family, we get to help other veterans and their families by giving them the support, someone to talk to, and someone who understands what they are going through, like we received when we were in the service. Behind the lines of soldiers are the people that do the worrying, concern, wonder, and hope that the soldier prevails for the entire population of the United States of America to enjoy freedom. While growing up in school, we would say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every day, and on many occasions sing the national anthem. It was just something you were taught in school. After being married to a soldier, living overseas in another country, I learned the meaning of the value of the American flag, what the flag represents, and the sacrifices that were made for our freedom. Now every time I say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing the national anthem, I get chills. In conclusion, I, the wife of a soldier, will always, until the day I die, reflect on the memories and the challenges of living this unique life and forever support those soldiers and their families that have given so much.